This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Toman. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome.
Welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I am your host, Coach Matt Toman. And as always, thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. I love putting the content out. I love the likes. I love the comments. I love the shares. I love this is a free resource I put out to coaches, and it does me. I love one of my top strengths, and one of the things I focus on is I love sharing knowledge, and this checks that box for me. I love going out and learning from different coaches, learning from different players and people, and then taking their message and sharing it with others so that they can share that message with their athletes and their parents. And I enjoy it so much. And today's my guest is a trainer. He works with mostly football, baseball, basketball kids, does some not just lifting training and speed training and, the physical body, but he also does some specific stuff for skill sets for different sports and combines those two. And what I love about that is, and you'll hear me talk about this interview, and if you followed me at all, you know that I believe in this idea. If you want to become an elite athlete in an area, there's three things you have to focus on. And the first one is we know we have to have a skill set. If you are a basketball player, you really need to be putting in a lot of time, learn how to pass, dribble, shoot, all those things, right? The best athlete in the world can't play basketball if they don't have the skill set. So, and that goes for every sport, football, volleyball, baseball, whatever. And we know this. If you want to play basketball, if you want to play baseball, you have to work on the skill set. That's number one, that skill set, that specific skill set. Number two is you have to work on your physical body. So we know that you can have a lot of skill set. You can be a good shooter. You can be a good passer. You can have all these skills. But, when we get an opponent in front of us and they're bigger, faster, stronger, we can't really apply our skill set. So the second thing that we have to have, and we're good about this, is, and I think that that's come a long way in the last 20 years, we know that athletes have to be bigger, faster, stronger, and we work on it. So I think that if we're looking about the progression of those things, early on when a kid wanted to play a sport, we're like, you really need to work on that skill set. And then, like I said, in the last 20 years or whatever, it's a progression. And you can see that in the way how much stronger high school athletes are now. We realized, we need to also work on the physical body. We have to have this strength, this speed, this agility, all these things. So we were like, okay, we know that you need to have the skill set, but we also know you need to have the physical body. As a culture, as a society, we work on those. And I know that because that's where we put the money, right? So it is the summer, and if you've got kids, you're putting them in camps, right? You probably putting them into a basketball camp, baseball camp. You're doing all these things. If they're a little bit older and they have some really serious goals, or your high school might be doing it, that they're putting time in the weight room, getting bigger, faster, stronger. It's like that's where we put our time, our money, our effort. We're like, if you want to be Division I, and it's not all about being Division I, but if you want to be good at your sport at any level, high school and above, we need to work on our skill set. We need to work on our physical body. It's just a no-brainer. It's where we put our time and effort and our money. But there is a third area that I think is starting to develop more that we as a society don't do as well on. And obviously, if you know me, if you know what this podcast is about, it's the mindset. And I contend that, early, of course, there were people that developed skill set that also had big, fast, strong bodies, of course, and they were better at it. And there are people that are naturally good at the mindset and develop that on their own. So it's not like it never existed. People have it. I mean, there's classic players, and there's all-time greats that had great mindsets. Of course, there always have been, there always will be. But what I'm talking about is where we put our focus. Right? And I think that we are starting to get into this idea and this understanding that working on our mindset is that third key, that third area, that third focus that we have to have if you want to be elite. We put kids in camps to get the skill set. We send them to a trainer or to the weight room to get stronger. We don't necessarily do anything intentional to develop that mindset. I contend that if you don't have the right mindset, the first two don't matter. And we know that. We've seen athletes that have phenomenal skill set, phenomenal bodies, and can't get it done because they can't get their head right. It matters. I think that is a change that we need to make. I think it's the change that makes the most difference in the long run. You're going to hear in this interview with the trainer, Dayton Burnett, we will talk about that, about how important it is to have that mindset, because we want kids to work hard. We want them to develop these skills and do all these things. But we all know that they're probably going to go on and have a career, have a job, have a life that they might be playing basketball. They might be playing some baseball, or might be playing their sport as an adult, but it's going to be at, much less of an extent. So but we know that they're going to need that mental skill set, that mindset to get through life. So I think that we know that athletics can develop a good mindset, but we've been very lax in just assuming that will happen. And I am here to tell you that can be developed. It can be created, and it should be a focus. It should be something that we work on. If, a kid doesn't have a good left hand, and we're like, you need to get out there and you need to start dribbling more left-handed to get better at it. If you take a kid and they give them, drills to do to dribble left-handed, and they are religious about it, and they do it every day for a month, we all know you're going to have serious gains. Like, it's going to be a whole lot better, and that will transfer to their ability in a game. We have no doubts about that. What we don't do is give them skills, or tools rather, to build mental skills. We just assume it will happen. What you need to do is find ways to give them mental tools to develop their confidence, develop that grit, and do it on purpose. And know that if we work on these skills, and this be something I do every morning, every night, or something I think about or be intentional about when I go into practice, it will get better, and it will transfer and translate to their game. It will translate to their overall success, and it will be skills that they use as an adult. So I guess that's my comment as we get into this interview. You're going to hear Dayton talk about different lifts but he's very good about the mindset and how we do that. And I just want you to know, as we get into the summer and we do things with kids, if you're working on them to develop their skill set, and if you're working on than with somebody to develop their body, and you're not intentionally doing things on developing their mindset, you're not doing all that you can. And there is a lot of wood left to chop. There's other levers to pull, and you can really help them become better athletes, better humans. So listen to some of this in this podcast. You'll hear this interview with Dayton Burnett, good trainer, good guy, and you'll pick up some things there's other things we talk about in here, but I just wanted to preface this episode with that. And I think you'll pick up on that and see where I'm coming from. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. And welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Tolman, and I'm here with my guest today, Dayton Burnett. Burnett, is that correct?
Burnett,
Dayton Burnett. And so Dayton is a sports performance coach, personal trainer type guy, and I really want to get this guy on. I'm very much interested in, and as you know, anybody listening or Dayton probably knows that I'm into the mental side but it's the mental side in a very physical arena, right? So the connection that I really want to get into, and I thank Dayton for coming on, is really diving into that mind-body connection and how we do that and how we develop that in youth, right along with the athletic and the physical body that we're trying to create. And so that's going to be the topic today. And thanks for coming on, Dayton.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me, and thanks to Herm, who I've basically been working with him for almost 6-7 years now. So we have a really good relationship, and that's how we got connected. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I know Herm. Herm coached my son for a little bit, and I had a great podcast with Herm. And I reached out and said, "Hey, you know any trainers or anybody?" And you're the first guy he suggested. So, knowing Herm, I think it's going to be a good conversation. So,
Yes.
give me your background in athletics. That's one of my first questions, so that people know where we're coming from and what the background is.
Yeah, kind of grew up playing everything, football, basketball in high school, and then ultimately ended up playing college football, D3 level. So, it's a D3 lifestyle. There was no, no, what do they call it? No NIL deals back then.
Yeah.
But really, so just for the love of the game, had a really good 4 years there. Learned a lot about what it really takes for a winning culture, to be successful long-term wise. And then I've just been in the training and coaching space ever since that, really since undergrad.
Yeah. I'm going to hold off any negative comments here. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a Millikan grad. So we're going to let that go we're just going to let that go about,
Hey,
your
my sophomore year, you guys popped us actually. So we only beat you guys 3 years at my
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it's a great rivalry and I love it. And I think it's one of when you talk about the D3 lifestyle, and I had a guest on recently who was talking about it, who's played at a couple different levels and coached at different levels. And he's like, don't ever think that the D3 athlete works less than the D1 athlete, because that's not the case.
Right.
It's just not. The D1 athlete is just has more physical gifts. It's the biggest difference.
Yeah. More resources but in terms of time commitment, it's very similar for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they do things at the D3 level for the coaches to not be able to do as much. So I guess maybe throughout the year,
Yeah.
maybe they don't quite as much, but don't ever get the idea that it is the student athlete and the student comes front. And I get that. But I mean, I played D3 basketball, and I tell you, when we were doing it, like I felt like I spent more time on that than I did that with the athlete part than I did the student part.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
For
agree.
better or worse, right?
Yeah.
We can argue whether or not that was a good time investment or not. So you played basketball, football, both in high school?
Yep.
Where was that at?
Springfield High School.
Yeah. And since we're digging into your past a little bit, I always ask a little survey or have a little conversation, and you mentioned something that I find very interesting.
Those were good prompts. Those are good questions.
Yeah. I asked you about mental toughness and what it meant to you and different examples and stuff. And the first thing you wrote was about how you got cut from your 5th grade, was it basketball team?
Yeah. Yeah.
How old are you, Dayton?
I'm 33 now.
Okay. That's still, you still remember that, and it hurts you, it feels like.
Oh yeah. I can detail I'll just go through it right now. Yeah. So that was, right when club ball was really starting to pick up. And yeah, 5th grade club basketball, all your friends are, making the team in the local area at least. And I remember, and the coach was someone who I looked up to in the community, and is a friend now. But yeah, I remember getting the call, and I was like shaking, and yeah, I was in tears. I mean, I was in tears for sure. But that feeling definitely helped push me. And I think without that, I wouldn't have had as much of a chip on my shoulder to really just prove myself in high school and middle school. I was never gifted, right? I was short, I was small, I was not the fastest, I couldn't shoot. So how I had to figure out ways to get on the court through literally just hustle, effort plays, teammate guy, and defense really. So I think that just sticks out in my memory because that was just a wake up call. Yeah.
Absolutely. And absolutely devastating, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guessing your parents were like, everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever, right?
Yeah, so then there's a B team, right? There's the
team.
Then it's like, all right, I'm on the B team this summer. And it's like, all right, I'll show these guys what I can do, and then just kept competing, right? Just tried to be the ultimate competitor. And you can either let that define you and just give in, or just keep working at your craft and learn from it and if you had too much ego in that moment, you would have said, a lot of kids now are like, oh, I'm better than what I think I should be, and maybe they don't go try out the next year. But swallow your pride, get better at your craft, and take another stab at it next year.
Yeah, I think every athlete at some point should be relegated to the B team. Humility is just, it's part of sports, and when you're good at it and you're progressing, it's all phenomenal. But the ego can get in the way, and just getting put in the B team at some point in your development I think it's huge for an athlete. And it just, as a parent, you got the kids going through stuff. We don't always know what's best for us, and some of the things that we want the most that we don't get end up being the drivers. So long as you have the right mental attitude towards it, you could have quit basketball at that point if you wanted to, and a lot of kids might have.
And like when you're that young, like your identity is kind of all in one. It's like that's who you are. So yeah, no, it was traumatic and devastating. But you don't really know it in the moment, but that definitely helped propel the really just work ethic moving forward, I
Yeah.
think, for the next 10 years. Yeah.
To a work ethic that you have today that you still I'm guessing preach and believe and all those things that you're doing, it's that you can pinpoint back to this time in your life in 5th grade. It's
Yeah.
it is and I didn't want to belabor the point, but I think that those seminal moments can be so the worst things for us can become the best things for us.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
And whatever that, however that imprints its stamp on your, I guess, like, emotional memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I that sticks out big
Yeah.
time. I mean,
And my guess is I don't know what age. So you get out of college.
yeah.
Did you immediately go into like personal training, sports performance, stuff like that?
No, that's a good question. So, um, I actually GA'd at Robert Morris in Chicago for like a
Okay.
year, and then I kind of got caught up thinking, like, all right, I need to go make some money. Like, I this isn't going to be sustainable. So I took a logistics job, a transportation job in St. Louis, with a family friend who had a business down there, and then got there, was miserable at the desk job for like a year and a half. And then quickly realized, all right, I have to get back to my roots. So then I went back to grad school, got my master's in sports administration, and after that, that's when I got moved back to Springfield and got into training and coaching. Yeah, so about
Oh,
2015. 2015
yeah.
was the start. Yeah.
So you went back and got your sports administration
Yeah.
masters and then got into the performance coaching.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
So what does that look like when you sent me your what you do? You say sports performance coach. What do you mean by that? Run me
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah. So in our market here, um, there's not a lot of trainers that, um, I say, kind of do both sides of the equation, right? So there's the weightlifting, speed, agility, and then there's also the skill side, like the sport coach side. So, um, my my two areas on the skill side are football and basketball. So I'm able to deliver a good training experience and understand what they need to do with their body in the weight room, get them ready physically and mentally in that capacity. But then also from a skill acquisition standpoint, I can still kind of talk the language and get them to buy into why both are needed, and be really a one-stop shop, a solution for both the skill on the field or on the court and in the weight room. And I think that's really exploded over the last 10 years. You see, instead of there just being, all right, you're the weightlifting coach, now you see, at colleges and pro teams, they have coaches that are, that performance word, right, gets
Yes.
thrown around, and then they can, they can handle the work on the court as well as in the weight room in the off season.
Yeah, it's about functional movements, functional for your sport, and then also knowing what those functional movements are. Like the old school, like I'm just gonna throw it out there that you probably like you get these kids coming in, and some of the old school lifts.
Right.
Like I don't know how much bench press you're doing. You're probably not doing like good old fashioned deadlifts because it's like, and you
No,
might do some, but it's not like
exactly.
you're not
So
doing
yeah,
them for that sake, right?
yeah, it kind of goes to that concept of diminishing returns at
Yeah,
some point. Well, and right, everyone has heard the story of, like KD. You remember he couldn't
yeah,
bench 185. Does that
yeah.
really mean that he is not going to be a good basketball player? No, no. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, I'm not. I couldn't tell you how many times. There's probably over 10 years I haven't had an athlete bench press consistently. That's not part of their programming.
No.
Deadlift, different deadlifts. Yeah, that's more transferable for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you train like a bodybuilder, you're not gonna move like an athlete. So
Right.
there's still elements of powerlifting that will help athletes' performance. But yeah, that the old school, how much can we just throw on the bar, and that's still, unfortunately, and it's no one's fault. Unfortunately, at the high school and the youth levels, it's still really misguided. And it's to no one's fault. It's just the information hasn't got down to that level yet. It's getting better for sure. It's getting better.
Yeah.
And as a sport coach, unless you do that as your living, you don't have enough time to research and say, all right, we don't have to do, we're not bodybuilders. We're not power lifters. So, um, and
I can go into almost any high school in the nation, probably.
yeah,
And they probably got a list on the board of who's lifting what, all
right. The
time
max. Yeah,
bench, all time squat, all time deadlift. You will never see a board talking about who has the most flexibility,
right,
right?
right,
There might be some
right.
speed stuff in there. There's more of that now,
Yeah,
but nobody's tracking and measuring that flexibility and saying how important that is, right? So
yeah,
when you say it's nobody's fault, it's a culture thing, right?
for sure, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And really, like, it's still all so new. If you zoom out of the big picture, really, all, all these strength coaches, the original ones, I mean, colleges only had enough resources to really pay for it. It really, most of it started in football, the strength coaches. And now that colleges have more resources, now you're seeing each team have their own strength and performance coach, which is great. And then they can kind of tailor their programming to that sport, and have a better programming for that athlete.
Yeah. So talk to me about, like, who is your client base? Who's coming in and leaning into your services?
Yeah, lot of seventh, eighth graders, and then high schoolers. High schoolers, big time here in this market. We don't have a ton of colleges here, but the summer will be fun.
Right.
A lot of the college kids that play college ball are now trickling back in, and the ones that do get to spend a month or two here will help get them ready for their fall season, when they're going back to school. So a lot of
Yeah.
high school, really any sport, soccer, volleyball, track, eh, baseball, softball, football, basketball,
But
and then
as you say, your specific is the basketball, football is mostly what
yeah,
you do
on the skill side, yeah,
on the
on the
skill
skill,
side.
yeah, on the performance training, speed, strength, agility, that's still all
It is what
sports.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but on the court or on the field is where I can help with their skill acquisition by position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mental Mettle Coaching is driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that will allow athletes and coaches to grow, play, and live in a positive way. We offer a range of coaching and professional development services. First and foremost, we offer individual mental coaching for athletes, and it's easily the most efficient and effective way to help athletes replace fear and anxiety with positivity and confidence. Mental Mettle Coaching has helped middle school setters to high school lacrosse middies to D1 offensive linemen. If you have an athlete that needs to improve their mindset in athletics, mental coaching is the answer. We also offer team coaching, which uses the same concepts as individual mental coaching, but applies them in a group setting. Team bonding outings are great, but they do nothing to address the thoughts and feelings that can derail a team. Team coaching does address that, and it's a great option for helping your team grow. Finally, Mental Mettle Coaching offers social, emotional learning, professional development programs for educators and coaches. There are fast-paced online programs. There are virtual coaching options and even in-person seminars available. This PD will help increase the mental health of your staff and eventually your student athletes and the culture of your school. All of the Mental Mettle coaching programs have the same goal. Our mission is to help athletes and coaches develop a resilient and spirited mindset that will help them confidently face any obstacles or challenges they seek, regardless of their situation. If you would like to see the same in your athlete, your team, and your staff, contact Coach Toman for more information. So let's say you got a 7th grader coming in and he does basketball. It's a 7th grade boy, he does basketball. How do you know, and let's say he probably, at that age, probably hasn't done a lot of lifting, hasn't done much. What's step one? How do you get it started?
Yeah. Yep. So there's definitely a part of an evaluation process where we can kind of track some metrics, mobility, go through a screen, and check for any glaring red flags. And it's tough too, because some of it is just, you're still going through puberty, right? So,
right.
It's some people go, I would say, overboard on all this corrective work, and it doesn't need to be that detailed that early. You do just
Right.
want to build kind of foundational strength in the big movement patterns, and then adding in some plyometrics, meeting them where they're at with their ability level. You don't want to run them into the ground, right? So like, I'm just big on quality over quantity. It's easy. I literally tell every parent at the initial meeting, right? Like, if you come in and I put you through some hellish workout every single time, is that really setting you up for success for you down the road? Probably not. Like, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's helping you become a better athlete. And like, getting out of that mentality is really hard for some people, and parents and coaches. So
I think that there's a mantra that there's a lot of people that do think I'm all about doing hard things. But hard for hard's sake.
Yeah.
Without a goal or without a purpose, it wears out. It wears anybody out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and it's right. It's easy to just say, all right, we're doing 15 suicides today. Like, so a lot of coaches think they're now, don't get me wrong. You have to have a little bit of that every now and then, just for
agree.
The discipline and the accountability. But you are breaking them down, and that's where you see like a lot of the burnout, where like sometimes now a lot of the best athletes in high school, they're done with it by they don't even want to play sports in college, because it's just been too much too soon.
Yeah.
So I really try and get people, like, if you're a multi-sport athlete now, you don't have 2 weeks off the entire year ever.
No.
And that's why I try and like, the injury rates are still really high, because they're literally, again, because of club and because of school, they're playing 100 games a year as a 14-year-old, and whatever, baseball, soccer, basketball. Now everything's year round. Volleyball, you're doing the same thing. That's where all the overtraining injuries on the joints come in. And so
those repetitive motion injuries they're so much higher than they used to be.
Yeah, knees and ankles. Yeah. And so I just implore the parents, take if you're good, you don't need to go to that tournament where you think you're going to get all this exposure. Like, if you're good,
well, that's the misconception, right? It's like, where you're thinking you got a 15-year-old, and we're like, oh, we can't miss this tournament this weekend. For a 15-year-old, it does not matter. It just does not matter. And that's a culture thing as well, that thinking we're going to miss this and miss that. And it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And it's like, you want to be exposed to as many different movement patterns for your development as possible. So I mean, you need to just go be a kid for some
Yeah.
time of the year and like just relax, honestly. Like just
Well,
decompress.
and yeah, and think about the mental aspect of taking breaks and getting time off and not being on the go all the time. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I got some D1 football players coming back, and they probably get like literally like probably 2 weeks off the
Yeah.
entire year. So yeah, like we're not even doing anything this week at all. Like just go
No.
spend time with your family.
Yeah.
We'll get you back in. We're not gonna do the same lifts that you're doing with your college team with your strength coach. We're gonna do more mobility. We're gonna do all the little things that are hard to do when you're in that team environment, when you have 50 to 60 players in the weight room at once.
Yeah.
And so you can just spend a little bit more time on the details when they're not in that team environment.
So now that we got a good handle on what you do and why you do it, I really want to dive into the mental part, right?
Yeah.
Like, first question, how do you address it, or how do you make sure that you're gaining a proper mindset along with the skill and the strength?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think as hard as it is, you try and hammer the message of, even though you're going through this process of becoming the best athlete that you can be, the work and the preparation that you're doing now, you're going to be able to transfer that mindset to whatever you do after college. Whether fine, like if you end up being a pro, that's great. But
yeah,
so
but that's
0.01%, right? So,
I mean, yeah.
So
So to answer that question, you've been doing this for 9 years now. How many kids have you worked with that went pro?
Oh yeah, I mean, true, like pro. I mean,
yeah,
hardly none. Yeah, like
yeah, and I'm not giving you a hard time. That's the facts, right?
Exactly.
It is what it is. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. So,
and just getting them to buy into the work that you're doing now is going to bleed into whatever path that you want to choose moving forward, whether that's business. I mean, whatever you want to do with your career, you're going to be able to, and that's why employers love athletes, right? Like for the most part, they know that they're going to come into that job and compete. I mean, ultimately you're competing against yourself and your other employers in that position, for to deliver value, to add value to that company,
right.
just the way they're adding value to their team right now. Even if you're not the star player, right? Like everybody has a different role, so embrace that role, and then the skills, the traits, the attitude, the mindset that you're developing now in athletics, you're going to be able to transfer that to whatever you want to do, and that's going to give you a huge advantage over other people in your space, whatever that is, moving forward.
I always think that, so one of the things as a mental coach, one of the things that I try to want people to do is celebrate the smallest victories, right?
Yeah, that's
great.
And
it's huge. And I think that the science is clear. Whatever we focus on, we improve on. So if you're celebrating little victories on things you did well, and that's your focus, it's going to be something you repeat more rather than focusing on what you did wrong. The question there is, or the thought is, that one of the reasons I think people love weightlifting so much is that you can see incremental increases, right?
100%,
and
100%.
not many things in life are that clear cut, right? So lifting is phenomenal with that. How do you guys celebrate those wins and make sure that they becomes a focus, or is that a thought process
Yeah,
for you?
and so on those initial meetings, we'll grab some metrics, some physical metrics, some testing, and then like we can just track that over time, and those incremental wins are huge for just your confidence, right? So like
Yeah.
in your training, okay, we have our eyes set on improving your vertical, whatever, so you can that is the one great thing about exercise and lifting and training is it is, like you said, one of the few things in life that it's like, okay, this is actually black and white. The training, the preparation that I'm doing now is directly improving my chances to be better next week, next month, next year. And seeing that on paper, and then seeing it on the court or on film, on game film, um, is how you build confidence, and what helps you keep going with, because it does become, the word grind has been kind of sensationalized, but
Yeah.
I mean, it is. So you can't cheat the grind, and you know you can.
Yeah, and I love the grind. I love trust the process. I love all those things. They're all true, but you have to have it has to be sprinkled in with that. You have to have little wins along the way, right?
Yeah,
You just have to, right?
yeah,
And and I'm a proponent of celebrating even the smallest win, and I don't mean like go nuts over it, but like every little win is an opportunity to build positive confidence.
yeah,
Everything. Yeah.
and that's where I think the best teams, the best sport coaches are able to sit in that film room,
Yeah.
as a team, and then point out, right, like this is really how you get buy-in from all the role players that aren't the star players. Is you get that laser pointer on the screen, and you say, hey, the reason we won the game is because of this little tiny adjustment that we saw, and our second string point guard executed it to a T, right? Like,
Yeah.
he set the screen the right way. He was in the right position on defense, help and recover. Like those little, like you said, celebrating those little things and pointing that out to the rest of the team, then everybody's on the same page. It's not about who fills up the box score,
Mm-hmm.
who has the most points, has the best stat line. And it's really hard now, though, because before social media,
Oh, sure.
you know you weren't getting all that love from the world, from the internet. So now it really takes a special leader and a special coach to celebrate, um, the role players, to get them to buy in, to support, the leaders of the team too, that are getting more of the headlines and whatnot.
Yeah. So and I agree with all that, Dayton. It's you're 100% right. I think that film rooms and just looking at just our daily progress and stuff, it has to be filled with finding the positives. I know that many athletes love to beat themselves up with what they did wrong and what they're
Yeah,
not doing well. Um, I like to say it's a very short term motivator, and people fall in love with it. But if that is your thought process day in and day out for years, it has some very dire consequences, and you will not progress over time as much as the athlete that is constantly focusing on what they're doing well and what they're improving on. That's not just me. That's science. That's research. That's like focus on what you're doing well and pick out those victories and celebrate them.
yeah, and embrace your role, whatever that is, right? So like,
Yeah.
um instead of, so if you're, let's just keep talking basketball, like if you're in high school, right, like if you're the rebounder, if you're the defender, let's just keep getting really, really, really good at that, instead of trying to improve all these other areas. When you, what's the old saying? If you uh aim small, miss small, right? So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if you try and spray a net and try and develop all these traits, you might incrementally improve each one of them, but it's probably not going to move the needle to make a difference in the game. But if you go all out on your superpower of, just dominating rebounds or dominating assists, that's going to be, you're going to carve that out, and there's going to be no way that the coach can take you off the floor, because that's such a big part of the game. Instead of like if you're focusing on your weaknesses, if you're the rebounder
Yeah.
defender and you're frustrated because you're not hitting threes, that's going to throw you off of your own game, and it's going to get you out of what you do well.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say, like, you still do want to,
Yes.
especially as you go up, like, eventually the pros are having to develop all that stuff. But at the lower levels, embrace your role.
Just build you. I think you need to build supreme confidence in something and find what you're good at and build that confidence in it. And success breeds success. And if you learn, because confidence itself is a skill, and if you can focus on building confidence in the weight room, it can transfer to confidence on the court, and it can eventually transfer to confidence in your relationships, and it's all connected. And I think that's a great skill to have. No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Mettle Coaching now offers professional development for coaches, explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Mettle Coaching today. One of the ideas, and this is something I want to chew around with you a little bit. It's the idea, and you leaned right into it. Is there's an idea that I've heard that if you want to be elite in a sport or a discipline, there's three things that you need to have. One is your skill set, which you mentioned that you work on. The two is your physical body, right? Which is what you do as well. And the third one is having a mindset, working on your mindset. And I agree with all that. Here is where I come in, and what I'm trying to do is, like somebody like you mentioned, you have specific tools to build those skill sets, right? You have the specific tools to build the body. But what we do as a culture is we just assume that the mental tools will just take care of themselves. Right?
No, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And that's an idea I'm trying to push, is that it's when I say to kids that they're like, hey, I'm struggling with my confidence. And the parent will always ask me, hey, does this coaching stuff work? This mental coaching? And I'm like, well, have you ever done any of it? And they're like, never. We haven't done any. I'm like, then it's going to work. Then it's going to work great, because whatever we focus on, we get better at. And if we do tools to build your, and you know that if we want to get better at your vertical, we do stuff to get your vertical. If you want to get better at your confidence, I can give you specific tools to build your confidence. Yes. And I just, I don't know what my question there was on it, other than I just want your opinion on that.
Yeah. Coming up with a framework of really just very simple, daily mental drills, you could say. I mean, that you can implement as a sport coach or as a trainer to your athletes and clients to improve their mental approach to whatever task they're going for.
Right.
So
Yeah.
whether that's, the science is clear now. Just, I mean, literally writing down whatever that you
Yes.
want to improve on, just writing it down, on like physically manifesting it
Yeah.
into this realm, instead of it, like, yeah, you can have it all up here, but when you write something down, that does something psychologically for you, and it's gonna help you stay on track. It's gonna help you stay committed to that process of improving whatever it is, like, emotional IQ, right? So, like,
Yeah.
say you have a turnover in the game, and then your body language goes to
Yep.
crap, right? Now you can coach that up and see it on film and say, hey, let's come up with a mantra, or literally a coping mechanism, to where it could just be your breathing technique. It can be anything, like a deep sigh,
Yes.
and then just move on. Because if you don't move on, it's going to negatively affect your performance on the next possession.
And I think that that's my point, is that the old school, everybody knows, every coach that has ever coached knows that you can identify bad body language after a mistake, right? We identify it and we tell a kid why that's bad. But what we haven't done a good job of is giving them the tools to get out of that, or not have that happen in the first place. We just say, oh, that's bad,
Yep.
right? Don't
Yep.
do that. Well,
Yep.
where if you're playing basketball and you have a kid that's missing their shot in a certain way all the time, we say, okay, you can't have your elbow out like this. That's bad. Here's what you need to do to fix it. But I think with the emotional stuff, we haven't taken that step and said, here's what you need to do to fix it. We just say, don't do that.
No, not unless you have an elite coach. Yeah, as a leader,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wave is definitely still untapped, and there's still a ton on the table, especially in the youth, the 18 and under,
Yes.
to really help um with the stress of performance. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Well, you work with kids that you see them day after day or week after week, right?
Mm-hmm.
How well are you able to notice when a kid comes to you that they're not right in the right emotional headspace? How well can you notice that this kid's off today?
Yeah. You can, and that's definitely one of the skills, as a trainer or coach, is to pick up on that, um maybe just loss of self-confidence from their end, and then try and talk them through, give them a little pep talk on, all right, why are you doing this in the first place? let's
Yeah.
let's let's think about the big picture. It's literally one game. Like, this doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
And pick up the pieces from there. But you're right, yeah, it can snowball out of control, and
Oh yeah.
especially if you have super demanding parents, where,
And
they're, which is pretty common, where they're
it's
they're
common.
not,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're not hearing you out, or they're just keep pushing. So it's important to talk about. It is.
It is. So I know we're running out of time here. I'll give you this last question I always love to ask is, what did I not ask you that I should have? What did we not talk about that's really important?
I'll kind of just talk on that other area that you prompted me before, on things that stood out in my past, that kind of just helped
Yeah.
propel me to where I am today. And so, my senior year of college football, I tore my ACL my fourth game of the year, and so I was done for the year.
Yeah.
And I was
done for your career, right?
Yeah, career ending
Yeah.
injury. Yeah. So, and just oh man, yeah, I get tore up thinking about it right now. But
Yeah.
you know, you get the call from the athletic trainer who read the MRI, and like I mean, I knew I did something bad,
Sure.
but I didn't think I tore my ACL. Like, so the next morning, yeah, that Sunday morning, I just get the call from the trainer. Hey, Dayton, you tore your ACL. You're you're gonna either have surgery now or wait till the end of the year. But just wanted to share that news with you. So, you know, got off the phone, walked outside, tried to process everything that was happening. And we were having a really good year, super good team. And then so, you know, my whole identity was that, you know, I
Yep.
was a college football player. And then my head coach challenged me to wait till after the year to have surgery, after the season to have surgery, so I could still be with the team, like at practices, and still
Yeah.
be there for them. And so um I did that. I waited till after the year to have the procedure, and that just forced me even more to try and be the just, you know, try and be the ultimate team player and still be there as a vocal leader for the team. And we went on and still had an amazing senior year. And I I never really I will say um my players and coaches really helped me through that.
Yeah.
So having that support circle when you're going through an injury, going through some adversity, you gotta talk about it with people around you that you know that they have your back and they care about you. And then I probably didn't know it in the moment, but again, like, I just had my mind on, okay, I'm gonna rehab this. Like, my whole goal was basically to get back to the athleticism that I had pre ACL. And
Yeah.
I've
Regardless of what you had coming, right?
yeah, like, I wasn't
Yeah.
playing. I had I mean, I just, for my own health and sanity, um I went through that rehab process, which took you know, like, at least a year. And my whole goal was, all right, I want to be able to literally play basketball without thinking about my knee again.
Right. Right.
And because of that rehab process, I learned the ways to, you know, to basically get back to, I would say I'm almost 100%. And
Yeah.
this is gosh, so I was 21 when that happened. So this is like 12 years later now, and that's really been helpful to communicate to the kids that I work with now that are going through
Yes. You know, it's
injuries.
interesting. What's
Yeah,
interesting is earlier I said every player should have to be relegated to a B team at some point. I think and most do, but every player should have to deal with an injury at some point because it helps you, makes you be a better teammate.
yeah,
You have to go through the hard work of rehab, and I think that those skills are just as important as the games that you miss out on. Now, we would rather it not be a career-ending senior year injury for that, but I think that there's so much to be gained from that injury on what it means to be a teammate and what athletics mean.
yeah. And it's just gonna build so much grit, right? Like, that
Yeah.
that's a great word to
So long as you let it, so long as you have, right? Because a lot of
yeah,
people quit when they get on the B team. A lot of people quit when they have an injury. And I think it's very important to lean into the positives of those things.
yeah, because that it's very easy for it to spiral the
Yes.
other way. And I mean,
Yes.
that happens a lot too. And then
Yeah.
they literally never get back to their
No.
physical or
No.
mental state that they were at when they were playing. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was learning all these techniques that are now literally what I use to pay my bills as a
Yeah.
career. So,
Yep.
like, all the little rehab, like all the physical therapists, all the coaches that I was sponging off of, now I'm
Yeah.
able to pass that down to the next generation, and that's probably what I'm like most proud of.
That's,
Is
I mean,
it just
I love athletics. I love, that's the point of it, is to face adversity and be ready and use those tools you gain to face that adversity and have them ready for life.
and yeah, and just embracing the concept of just being a lifelong learner. So like
Yep.
no matter what level you're at, I'm big on this too with all the athletes. Like no matter what level you're at, right? Like even at the high school, who's getting all the tabloids and everything in their local
Mm-hmm.
market, you're never there, right? You've never arrived. There's always, I mean,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like Brady, there's easy examples. Like Tom Brady's a great example, but
Yeah, but still,
there's always that incremental 0.1% that there's something that you can improve on, and keeping an open mind and keeping that what I like to call that beginner's mindset, right?
yeah,
So don't act like you know everything. Like embrace learning from other people, get other opinions, get other perspectives, and if you can internalize that, you're going to be able to use that as momentum going forward, and then you're going to be able to help other people with that same process down the road.
absolutely. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Dayton, it's been a fantastic conversation. I thank you for coming on and giving me your time and a lot of lessons here, and just love hearing different people's stories and how they view this stuff. And next time I'm up in the Springfield area, I'll run by the Y and
Yeah, love to meet you
we
in
can
person.
meet in person.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Dayton.
All right, thanks, Matt.
No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation with trainer Dayton Burnett. I think it was a great, and he picked up, there's a lot of things that we talked about in there. I think one of the things, and I talked at the beginning, and you heard me through there about how important it is. There's 3 things we've got to work on. We already know that we got to work on their skill set. We got to work on their body. And the third thing that we falter on sometimes as a society, as parents, as coaches, we don't intentionally develop that mindset. And it's extremely important, as he talks about some different things in there. He talked about, as a kid, getting relegated to a B team and not making it. He talked about having losses in games and not, having some issues, because that's what sports are about. We lose as much as we win and things like that. And then he was talking about a bad injury that he had. Those things happen, right? If you are really pushing yourself as an athlete and you're trying to get better, you should experience some losses. You should find some issues, especially like over the summer. One of the things I love to say, if you're an athlete, I would say this all to basketball players, if you go to a gym and you're the best player in a gym, you need to find a new gym, right? Because you're not experiencing that failure, and you need to experience that failure. And injuries happen. I work with a lot of athletes that have injuries. Almost every athlete I've ever worked with has an injury at some point. It's all part of it. When we put our physical body through these things, we get injured. And we know that these losses happen, these setbacks happen. These are the areas that we have to be prepared for with the right mindset. And that's why it's so important to have that mindset. If you don't have that mindset, if you haven't developed your confidence, if you've not developed your ability to handle your internal voices, if you've not built a little bit of internal grit and actually enjoying the process and enjoying the grind, if you've not developed those things, setbacks can snowball, can absolutely deflate your confidence, and it can absolutely deflate, just derail your entire your plan for what you have. You have to be prepared for that. And if you're not prepared for that, your kid or whoever, if your athlete, they're probably going to struggle. If they don't have some of these tools ahead of time, injuries, not making a team that you want, they're going to struggle more than kids that don't have, that do have those abilities and have those mental tools. And it's easy to say, hey, I'll wait till I get an injury, or I'll wait till, I don't make a team, or I go through a hitting slump, or we start having issues and we're not winning games. And I get a lot of that. And they say, well, we're really struggling. We want to develop some tools, and I can help with that. And we can do that. But, the time to learn how to use a fire extinguisher is not when the fire is raging, right? We want to start developing these tools for mentality and mindset when things are good, right? We want to learn how to be mindful and have meditation and practice gratitude and do all these things that I work with athletes so that they have these in their toolbox when these things, which are going to happen. It not only that, but if you have a kid and they have these mental tools and you know that their mindset is rock solid, they're more likely to go take these big challenges. They're more likely to say, I know that I might not make this team, but I'm going to try out for this team, or I'm going to go against this competitor and not be scared about it. But like, hey, let's go see. I know they're better than I am, but so what? Let's go compete. And if you have that mindset, if you have those tools in your toolbox, you don't see failure like that as a bad thing. You see failure as a good thing. And just being prepared for that is so important. And it's something, again, as I said I don't think we do enough of that. I think we're doing a disservice to our kids if we are just assuming that mentality will just be developed. It will some. I mean, sure, those losses are going to happen and those failures are going to happen, and we can learn from them, and you should. And but I think just too often we just assume that's going to happen, and it doesn't for every kid. They really struggle. They're, in our society with, so much social media and so many other issues, and coming back from the COVID thing, and that does affect kids' mindset. They're just behind on some of this stuff. And you see a lot of kids quitting sports, which I hate to see because it's such a useful tool. And if we're not doing those things, if we're not helping those kids develop those tools intentionally, we're missing an opportunity for them to be their best player, for their best human. And I think it's something we ought to be looking into. Obviously, that's what I do. I'm a coach. I'm a mental coach, and I've worked with kids from 8 years old up through college. It is not about making them become a Division I athlete. That's never my goal. But that said, I don't think if your kid does want to be a Division I athlete and they have the skills, if they have that skill set and they have that body and they have those abilities, you have to have that mindset. If they haven't developed that mindset, they're probably not going to make it as a Division I athlete. So I think that you have to look into that mindset piece. It's really important. If you ever have questions about that, that's what I'm here. That's what I do. That's what I love doing. So always reach out to me, Coach Tillman at Mental Mettle Coaching. I'd love to help. So been a great episode. Once again, I can't thank you all enough for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all those things. It means a lot every time I get a comment. So I really do. So once again, I'm your host, Coach Matt Tillman. This has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. And always remember, forge your mettle.
Thanks again for listening to the Mental Mettle Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Mettle Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Mettle Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Mettle Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your mettle.